Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Well, here the police and security services say they're keeping an eye on 3,000 people of interest and that they have 500 active investigations to deal with. This week's atrocity has again raised questions about government strategy and whether it has the right powers to deal with those who pose a possible risk. Our home editor Mark Easton reports.
The murder of Lee Rigby in Woolwich 2013 prompted David Cameron to reshape his counter-terrorism strategy.
Absolutely resolute in its stand against violent extremism.
The focus was on homegrown extremism, with public sector workers becoming legally obliged to inform police if they thought someone was displaying extremist behaviour. The government set up an extremism task force and proposed a counter-extremism bill with tough powers against anyone deemed to be an extremist. But the legislation now looks unlikely ever to happen because ministers struggle to define extremism, and concerns the approach fosters suspicion and distrust in largely law-abiding Muslim communities. The terror attacks in Paris in 2015 sent a shockwave across Europe. In the UK, ministers responded by announcing an extra 1,900 spies and 1,000 more police firearms officers.
We have been building the capability of police here in the UK to respond to...
But the number of firearms officers is actually 1,300 lower than in 2010. The attack in Westminster last March once again focused concerns on keeping track of individuals known to have radical views. There were questions as to why people like the murderer Khalid Massoud couldn't be monitored and, if necessary, detained. Security services have 3,000 people under investigation in active operations, but only 7 people have their movements restricted under special powers. The courts take a dim view of limiting people's freedom if they haven't been convicted of a crime. The dreadful bombing in Manchester was followed by claims that cuts to policing may have contributed to the attack, an accusation emphatically denied by the government. Ring-fenced money for the police's counter-terrorism effort has increased over the last few years, from £594 million in 2015-16 to £675 million now. But that doesn't tell the whole story, because that money comes out of the total police budget. Central government money for police has actually fallen 25% since 2010. In Greater Manchester, police counter-terrorism funding is up £6 million, but the force says its overall budget must go down £14 million. Spotting, monitoring and neutralising the threat from homegrown terrorists is partly about resources, of course. But it's also about creating a society where such an ideology cannot breed and thrive. Mark Easton, BBC News.
I've been getting away with it all my